There is a noise, there is a sound, there is a cry from the depths of our hearts. Heaven come down, will not be silenced, can't be contained. The cry of a people, a priesthood, a nation called by your name. Out of the darkness, redeemed from the night, bathed in his glory, reflecting his light. Oh, what a beautiful bride. From every nation, from every tribe, clothed with his righteousness, fully alive. Hear the song of the beautiful bride. Oh, what a mystery, how great the love calls to the broken, the orphan, the chosen, making us one. And under this banner, united we stand, bearing the goodness, the beautiful mercy of how great I am. Out of the darkness, redeemed from the night, bathed in his glory, reflecting his light. Oh, what a beautiful bride. From every nation, from every tribe, clothed with his righteousness, fully alive. Hear the song of the beautiful bride, singing how great and marvelous are all your deeds. Nations will come and bow down at your feet. Glory to you, Lord of all, King of all kings. We sing how great and marvelous are all your deeds. Let the nations all come and bow down at your feet. Glory to you, Lord of all, King of all kings. Out of the darkness, redeemed from the night, bathed in your glory, reflecting your light. Oh, what a beautiful bride. From every nation, from every tribe, clothed with his righteousness, fully alive. Hear the song of the beautiful bride. Hear the song of the
Amen. Okay, sorry about that. Lovely song though to get us going, wasn't it? Lovely song. Paul Wilbur, Song of the Bride. And normally when we start, I always play this way, don't I, from Psalm 45. Let the words of my mouth, let my tongue, should say, be as the pen of a ready writer, as I recite my composition concerning the King. Which it is always about the King, but tonight is about the King's bride, isn't it? It's all about the bride tonight. Chapter 4 of the Song of Songs is about the bride. It's the beloved speaking to the bride, because you'll see that word tonight for the first time in the Song of Songs, the bride, Kala. We'll talk about that for this session, chapter 4. So thanks for joining us, and on Zoom, thanks for joining us. Lovely to have people to talk to, because I do want to finish this song. You know, it's going to take a few more weeks. It's only in chapter 4. We're going to do chapter 4 tonight, so it won't be a big long one, but I want to finish this, and we've got a few weeks to do it, and a few weeks for this song to be in our conscious, in our thoughts, in our meditations. Learn the song, learn this song. It's the Song of Songs. So welcome to chapter 4 of the Song of Songs. But just to go back to chapter 3 for the last verse that we read last time, just to set the scene, the undoubted scene that is being set here is the wedding day, isn't it? Very clearly, the wedding day. We read in chapter 3, the last verse, go forth, daughters of Zion, and see King Solomon with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, the day of the gladness of his heart. And then we compared that, didn't we, with Matthew chapter 25. At midnight a voice was heard, behold, the bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him. It's that language. King Solomon, in this context, is just a picture of the Messiah, of Yeshua. And this is all parable, if you will, of the bridegroom's coming. And now, it's not coming for the day out. It's the day of his wedding, and it's the day of the gladness of his heart. I think that's how we finished last time, with that language of for the joy set before him. This is how God speaks. That's how he sees, and that's how he speaks of his people as his bride. And we can see that clearly in Isaiah. Let's just use this scripture to get going. Isaiah chapter 62. You know, this is how the Lord sees all of this. Clarified that in the other times, haven't we, with the Genesis narrative of Adam and going to sleep on his side, being obviously open to take out a rib, and a woman being formed, his bride being built. It's a picture. Paul says in Ephesians 5, this is a picture of the Messiah and his bride is a church, his assembly. So that's the overall narrative of the Bible, is that God wants a bride. Yeshua is the bridegroom. So Isaiah 62 verse 5, for as a young man marries a virgin, so shall your sons marry you. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall your God rejoice over you. That's so clear, isn't it? That God wants us to understand the language of the bride, the language of the bridegroom. And so this end of chapter 3 is a clear picture of the bridegroom coming for his bride. That's what he's coming for. And that's why chapter 4 is the picture now of the bride. It's a picture of how I see the Song of Songs, the wise virgin. She will depart in this chapter. She will go with the beloved in this chapter as the spouse. And in chapter 5, which we'll obviously come to in the next session, she's not called a spouse anymore, and she's still in bed. So when you see it clear, I see it as two Shulamites. I've heard others say it's a good dream and a bad dream. Same one and the same thing, really. It's two scenarios, the wise virgin and the foolish virgin. And as I alluded to at least last time, I don't believe in Matthew it's the end of the line for the foolish virgin. I just don't see it that way. And I think the Song of Songs bears that out, because you see the foolish virgin get out of bed and go through similar experiences as what we read last week in chapter 3. but slightly or dramatically different in places, but a very similar outcome. And everything that we'll read tonight, or many things that we'll read tonight, are repeated again later on in chapter 6, etc., to the Shunammite that remains, from my understanding of it. So I just think that it gives hope, even for the foolish, that they will get it in that time of great tribulation, as I've said. But that's more for chapter 5. Is that okay? I just putting it out that that's my overall understanding of this, that this beautiful song of songs, Song of Solomon, is about the wise and foolish virgins. So only just join us, etc. Make sure you read Matthew 25. I'm sure we'll have more opportunities to read it going forward. Last time we read Matthew 25 and Revelation chapter 3, didn't we? The Philadelphian assembly. And seeing comparisons just in that bit, didn't we? Of what the wise virgin is told to do, what she does in Matthew 25 and Revelation 3. You see the foolish virgin again in Revelation 3 in the Laodicean assembly with other similarities. And again, says that for chapter 5. So moving on, this now is the picture of the wise virgin. This is what she looks like, smells like. Her overall appearance is depicted in this tonight. And as I said, finishing last time, there's 7 areas that the beloved focuses on. 7. And 7 is it's God's number, isn't it? You can deny that God just is so associated with the number 7. And the number of completion, isn't it? 7 is the number of perfection. 7 days. I'm always amazed at that the whole of this world and everyone on it has a 7-day week. Whether they believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whether they believe in God, they've all got a 7-day week because God made it that way. 7 speaks of wholeness, completion. We're in the count of the own, we now count 7 sevens on that journey to wholeness. It's such a wonderful number, and that's why I believe the beloved brings out 7 areas that we need to focus on, because this has got to be speaking to you. It's got to be. It's not about some woman from thousands of years ago, and we go, I love you. It's meant to be, this is what you've got to look like. This is what the wise virgin will be like. This is why we'll read tonight. Come with me. There's no spot in you. Come with me, my spouse. The language of the bridegroom coming for his wise virgin bride. So we've got to allow this to transform us. We've got to look in the mirror of his word. James uses that language, doesn't he? Whoever looks in the mirror of his word and goes away and forgets what he looks like, all connected with faith. And faith without works is dead. It's a faith narrative, and that's connected with this faith language. So 7 things he will focus on. First off will be the eyes, which we're getting to know this language, aren't we? Hair, he will talk of her hair, her teeth, her lips, her temples. It's only about just, when we do the Torah, you already know where we're going with this tonight, with the temples. And the neck, he speaks so beautifully of her neck. And finally, her breasts. There's a lot more about that in the weeks to come, where he talks about her breasts. And we're not going to go all stupid, the way I've heard so many commentaries, which actually got just turn them off in the end. It's like, what is this? It's not a sex manual. It's not a advice manual for sexual relationships in marriage. If you want to get something out of that, okay, but don't base the whole thing about that. It's so childish. We look at it from what the Bible has to say about breasts, etc. So first off, let's just get into it. Chapter 4, verse 1. We'll get familiar with this language, aren't we? The beloved is speaking. It's his wedding day, don't forget. This is King Solomon, picture of Yeshua the bridegroom on his wedding day. he's come for his bride. You know, very Hebrew, the language of I'll go and prepare a place for you, and I'll come again and bring you to myself. It's the language of the wedding. So he says, behold. And that's why I've emphasized it tonight, the mirror of his word. We have got to agree with him and understand his way of seeing things. We've covered it in the teaching of the leper. You know, you got onto that, Vicky, made that connection last week, the connection of the being clean and understanding you've been made clean. This season that we've been through of unleavened bread. Paul's saying, you are unleavened, live like it, be what you are, be what he's made you to be, see how he sees you, you know, see it. You know, we've known this language from the word of faith. A lot of us got saved. When we got saved, we heard that. There's nothing wrong with that language, the new creation teaching. It's wonderful. We need to sound like this. The beloved saying, you are fair, my love. Behold, twice. Behold, really observe and understand and look in the mirror of the word and understand who you are now, who you are in him. Behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. Peter speaks of this, doesn't he? The beauty of the inner man, the hidden man of the heart. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 4. I just mentioned some scriptures because it's good to go and read yourself, just to be a lovely language speaking of the inner man, the hidden man of the heart. That is the beauty that God looks at. So the first of the areas that we focus on, the first one tonight is, it's also part of verse 1, isn't it? Verse 1, behold, my love, you are fair, you are all fair. You have dove's eyes. I think you remember this now, but let's just run through it all again, what this is all about. You have dove's eyes behind your veil. So even that's got the continuing, with the bridegroom's coming for his bride. It's behind your veil, you've got dove's eyes. And there's a few things to say about what dove's eyes are. And I always like to say just what the word is to start off with, because then it takes you into the understanding of who we are. Like we've just been talking about, this is who you are now. Dove in Hebrew is Jonah. Jonah, you know, Jonah and the whale, Jonah, the book of Jonah, Jonah, the sign of Jonah, Jonah. And that's the way I look at this. You've got dove's eyes, is Jonah's eyes. You've got the eyes of Jonah. You've got the eyes of someone who's done the 3 days and 3 nights journey. You understand that language, don't you? It's, I have died. We read it last night in Vicky's message on the Omer. I have died. I have been buried. And I have risen to newness of life. And as I say, I'm going to really embrace that language. You should do it 360 whatever days of the year. But just on this counting season that we're in now, it's what Paul's saying. Count, reckon, do the maths. Agree with God like Abraham did. God said to Abraham, can you count the stars? Abraham believed God, and God said, right, I can count, and I count you righteous. And Paul's using that to say, that's how we're righteous, through faith. Only through faith are we made righteous. So consider and count this way. Reckon it to be so. You've got Jonah's eyes. You've been buried, died and been buried, and risen again on the 3rd day. You know, that's what I get out of just the word Jonah, dove, Jonah. But let's say more about it, which we've already said in the past, but just the very species of bird we're talking about here is a beautiful creation, isn't it, of God. It's a sacrificial animal. You know, we see that, don't we? It's a sacrificial animal used in cleansing protocols and other areas that we look at in Leviticus, where this bird appears. But also, just the nature of this bird, as we've said, it's a straight looking, hasn't got one eye going that way. It's not looking in 2 directions at once. I remember when I was just in a band, didn't I? And we were on tour, and the drummer was called Jimmy the Pig, because he was, but he's beautiful, isn't he? You know what I mean? But he was Jimmy the Pig. And we played this important gig in Shepherd's Bush, and so the next day it was like get the reviews, and and in the Times, get all the major reviews, and the Times like 5-star review at Shepherd's Bush Empire. It was all yes, and then the Times, or the way only the Times could, commented on Jimmy the Pig, the drummer, and said how fantastically louche he was, and we were like, well, we could do crosswords and stuff. It was like, what's that? What's louche? Don't know what that is. So we had to go and check it out, and it was that one eye over there, and that's Jimmy the Pig, and one eye, and that Lynn's laughing because that's Jimmy the Pig. He could have his eye on two things at once, and have two agendas, and that language of one eye over there, it's not dove eyes. God bless Jimmy the Pig, but and I mean that, but dove's eyes, that's just to explain what dove's eyes are. They're not louche. They're not looking in one way and the other way. They're not split in that way. You can't love and serve two masters. Dove's eyes knows this. It's like you mimic to me the other week. I've only got eyes for you. It's that language. It's that language. It's that song. It's good to incorporate songs into this. Read the Song of Songs. I've only got eyes for you. Here's Dove's eyes. I can help you remember it, can't it? That chorus of I've only got eyes for you. Sing it to the Lord. He's only got eyes for you. He's got Dove's eyes. He's definitely got Jonah's eyes, hasn't he? It's the sign of Jonah that he gave. I want to die for you. I'm going to be buried and rise again for you. Not for himself, was it? Dove's eyes. And as we've said in the past, doves are monogamous. They are monogamous creatures. They have a partner for life. And that's beautiful, isn't it? That's what he's saying. I can see in your eyes. You're looking straight ahead. You haven't got peripheral vision. You've only got eyes for me. And you are faithful, like a dove. And like the famous one, don't be wise as serpents and gentle, harmless as doves. What a beautiful creature. And this is how the beloved, out of all the things he could say about her eyes, that's the way to explain them. That's why she's going with him, because she's got dove's eyes. Praise the Lord. Now the next one, I'm just going to run this obviously a list, and this is the second area that he's focusing on this list is your hair. Your hair is like a flock of goats going down or appearing, I think the King James says, appearing from Mount Gilead.
So the dove's a symbol of the Spirit as well, because the Spirit and alighted on Jesus. So,
yes.
She could be a spiritual woman as well.
Brilliant, Marion. I think I might have mentioned that when we looked at dove's eyes last time, with that connection with the dove.
Sorry, I didn't hear it.
And the Spirit, and you're quite right, and I'm glad you just added that to it. So, amen. Dove's eyes, spiritual eyes. Maybe I'll put that top of the list. Spiritual eyes. The dove was the Spirit, came as the Spirit on Yeshua. That's why they say. Thanks for that, Marion. Wonderful. So, and I just say then as well, I said it the other week, but that's a great way, I believe, to pray for one another. I just do. I believe when I pray this way for others, give so and so dove's eyes, Lord. I think he knows what I mean. He wrote it. It's just, you can elaborate, and go into Ephesians language and give them eyes, open their eyes at the spiritual understanding. That's the same I'm saying. Dove's eyes, as Marion is saying, alluding to, eyes of spiritual understanding. Paul prays this way in Ephesians, doesn't he? And at other places, that the eyes of their understanding will be enlightened. Great, and I do pray that way, but I can also go dove's eyes for a quick one. Is that okay? Yeah. This is the checklist, you see. I've got to get it myself, but I think we get it ourselves when we care about one another too, and pray this way for each other. So please pray for me to have dove's eyes, and I'll pray for you to have dove's eyes. And we'll all come out of this with beautiful, spiritual, faithful, monogamous, gentle, harmless eyes. It's what we see, isn't it? It's what people see in us. Beautiful. The next one then is hair. So again, another way to pray for one another is let's pray that we all have goat's hair. whatever, what's this all about? You know, it doesn't sound, but you know, this is shepherd language, isn't it? Only a shepherd could compliment another shepherdess in this way. You know, they get each other. It's like, if you get to the shepherd language, it's okay. But I think there's so much more to goats here. We'll be looking at it more in this coming Torah portion this week. On the Sabbath, we'll be looking at Yom Kippur. That's where the Torah's up to. And in the Yom Kippur instructions, goats feature very massively, don't they? Goats, two goats, the one that skits in offering and the one that escapes into the wilderness with all the guilt. There's two goats in the whole atonement Yom Kippur narrative, so it's very good to be associated in this way, in that way, with goats because of the atonement nature of the gospel. But like I think I've said on other occasions, not so much for the song, but I just get the impression of it's bringing in people to the kingdom, you know, like a goat versus a sheep sort of scenario. You're bringing in goats. When you're looking at the picture of Mount Gilead, you know, whenever you look at Mount Gilead, you've got to go back to the first mention of Mount Gilead, where it first came about and why it got its name. And then you'll see how connected with Jacob this is. And that's the Song of Songs. There's always going to be these references to the faithful fathers and mothers and to the roots of this. You know, it's very, Song of Songs is very taking us back to, like we read at the start, where do you feed your flocks? If you don't know, go fairest amongst women, follow in the footsteps of the flocks, come back to the ancient paths. You know, it's always going to have that taking us back to the fathers of the faith. And Jacob's one of them, isn't he? One of the fathers. God, you know, chooses to identify himself with three men in that way, doesn't he? And the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know, I have nothing bad said about these people because they are so important to the faith, these people. And so whenever you talk about Mount Gilead, you've got to have an eye on Jacob, thought on Jacob, because where did it all come from? It's when Jacob was coming home. Remember when he'd been in Laban's household for 20 odd years and he knew it was time and God confirmed it and it was time to go home. And so that's what I get out of that. Oh, you're here. It's like a flock of goats coming down from Mount Gilead, because that's where he ended up, wasn't it? When he fled from Laban and Laban pursued him, and then they set up a heap of witness. That's what Gilead is. Mount Gilead is the mount of that heap of witness. And that's what this is. Oh, you're here. It's like a flock of goats coming down from Mount Gilead. It's Jacob coming home. It's the return of Jacob with all of his flocks of goats and his flocks of sheep. But he had many flocks, didn't he? Yeah. You know, he was fruitful. And that's where this language goes now. Just have an eye on that. It's very much saying to the wise virgin who is going to go away to be the bride, you're here. God, it reminds me of Jacob. It takes me back to that man of God who I was in covenant with, who I looked after and made fruitful and prospered him. And your hair reminds me of goats coming down from the heap of witness, you know. And we've referred to that place, haven't we, even in modern day, to the Yom Kippur War, how significant that place is. When the Syrian army was turned back, angelically, and they turned around, literally, with all of their tanks that outnumbered Israel ridiculously. But they were turned back at that place because Laban and Jacob made an oath there. Don't cross here to harm each other. And it stands good up until the 70s in the Yom Kippur War. Amazing. So that's what it reminds me of, this language. It might be a bit, whatever the word is for off-piste. But that's what I get out of it when I read Mount Gilead. I know what Mount Gilead is. So how can you look at it outside of that narrative? And this is all about just saying these things, knowing the Holy Spirit can inspire, like he did with Marion then, inspire thoughts and connections. You know, it's a great song. It's going to be in it for a few weeks. I'm glad to be having this song playing continually in the background. So one more thing about goats here, and you remember this. You will remember this from when we were in Exodus, and we were looking at the tabernacle, and we had a lovely study because it was saying beautiful things like this, wasn't it? All the wise-hearted, that's what we're looking at, isn't it? The wise virgin. All the wise-hearted women whose hearts were stirred. What did they do? They spun goat's hair. And what's that for? Because one of the outer coverings for the tabernacle, one of the outer coverings for the tent of meeting is made out of goat's hair. So I just see all of these things. Goats are connected with sinners. That's why I see this sinners coming down from Mount Gilead, from the heap of witness, coming into the kingdom, coming back to Israel. That's what I see this as. I can't escape the atonement nature of goats. And finally, that covering, that part of the fabric of the tabernacle, in the light of, we're all being built into a spiritual house. In some way, we're all, from wherever we come from, parts of the construction of God's house. So that's all I can see out of them things. And then he moves on from the hair to the teeth, but still in the language of a shepherd. In fact, when I was reading this in Hebrew, it doesn't actually mention sheep. So I don't know if this goes even more in lines with the term from goats to sheep, but that's a little bit out there. But I'm just saying, it doesn't mention sheep in this. It says your teeth are like a flock shorn, which have come up from the washing. So you get that coming up from the washing, don't you? That baptism sort of sense to this. Even the shorn side of it, the sheared sheep. But that just reminded me of, probably because we've just been in Leviticus recently with the leper, and a cleansed leper, what's he got to do for his cleansing? Shave all his hair off. Your Nazarites have to do these things. There's a lot of shaving off of the hair in the protocols of being cleansed, being consecrated. And we look at that more in detail when we're actually there. But because we've looked at these things, it just reminded me of this conversion, this coming from a state of uncleanness into a state of cleanness, this transference from one kingdom to the other, if you will, and the connection with shaving. So I just get that out of it. But I've got one eye on this conversion narrative thing of goats to sheep, if you can see what I mean. But they're coming up from the washing anyway, you can understand that, can't you? Every one of them which bears twins, and none is barren among them. See again, Jacob was this way, wasn't he? When Laban tried to deprive him, God just blessed him and gave him a miraculous way to be fruitful with his flocks. And I'm just seeing this wonderful covenant, fruitful language. That's what he's saying to this wise virgin. You're very fruitful. Your teeth, which we'll look at more now, your teeth are like a flock shorn, which have come up from the washing. This washing in the word. She's a shepherdess, then he's saying, all your offspring, all your children, they're all washed and they're all clean because you wash them in the word and you wash one another, you wash each other's feet. You've got a strong understanding of what it is to be clean and how it is to stay clean, because you know what clean is and what unclean is, and you know how to deal with these areas that we look at. It's very Levitical, isn't it, that language? Let me just say this about teeth, because I think this is important to understand teeth, what teeth are in this context. Because he's saying now, this beautiful bride, this beautiful spotless bride, the teeth are like this. And so teeth is the word sheen, the letter sheen. You say that this is the picture of a tooth or teeth. But more importantly, the word for teeth is sheen. And it comes from the word Shannon, which is in Deuteronomy. And I just think I need to read it to get the impact of it. This is what teeth are, or where they come from. The biblical understanding of teeth is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 6. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently. Shannon. You shall teach them diligently. Shannon, the root of shame, tooth. You shall, Shannon, teach them diligently to your children. See, that's the connection, isn't it? Your teeth are like a flock of sheep, or a flock that are shorn, that are coming up from the washing. You've got to teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them. Talk of them. When you sit in your house, that's brilliant, isn't it? Because we're here sitting in our house, and welcome Jackie, and welcome everyone sitting in your own houses on Zoom. That's what we're doing, isn't it? We're sitting in our house, talking of them. And when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your dove's eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. You know, this is what Shannon, teeth, is about, because you can see it in, well, I'll read this from from Matthew Henry's commentary. Well worth reading, different take on the way I'm reading it. In some ways, very similar in other ways. But as I say, I'm holding this up mainly to the eschatological light, aren't I? And saying, I believe this is about the parable of the wise and foolish virgins. I believe this is about the revelation and the assembly of Philadelphia and the assembly of Laodicea. That's what I believe this is about. But we can both agree on this, what Matthew Henry's saying about teeth. Talking in terms of the feeding of the young. Ministers are the church's teeth. Like nurses, they chew the meat for the babes of Christ. Lovely. He says, faith by which we feed upon Christ. Meditation by which we ruminate on the word and chew the cud. So you can see where the teeth come into it, can't it? Faith by which we ruminate on the word and chew the cud upon that which we've heard, in order to the digesting of it. That's why clean animals chew the cud and unclean animals don't chew the cud. And why pigs are deceivers, because they've got split hooves which are clean, but they don't chew the cud. They look clean on the outside, but they're not. And this is what this is about, being really clean, cleansed inwardly and everything. So the chewing of the word, the meditating on the word, Matthew Henry's saying is, these are the teeth of the new man. Lovely. The teeth of the new man know what they're for. And there's biblical examples of bad teeth. Bad teeth. So let me just read a couple of little, suggestions, or whatever the right word is, for trying to juxtapose these two kinds of teeth. You've got good teeth, Shannon, teaching. Teeth connected with teaching, you've seen that. Also bad teeth, because Zechariah, I think I've got, Zechariah chapter 9, so I've written down. Yeah, and there's another one I was probably going to look at. But let me just say, Zechariah chapter 9, verse 7, I will take away the blood from his mouth and the abominations from between his teeth. That's why I'm saying there's good teeth are connected with good teaching, and bad teeth are connected with abominations between their teeth, eating abominable things, terrible doctrine, error. In these days, don't be deceived. It's bad teeth and good teeth. Good teeth chew, digest the goodness of the word. Bad teeth chew abominable things. And I've got other references. I just don't know whether I want to start flicking through. There's so much more to say. I wrote in my notes, Joel 1:16, Joel chapter 1, verse 16. I don't know if anyone wants to look at it and shout out, or Micah 3:5. I just don't want to spend the time going looking when I haven't got it clear in front of me why I put it there. There's other things I could just finish off with teeth. In the Psalms, in Lamentations 2:16, I'm talking about the gnashing. Yeah, that's a famous one, isn't it? Yeshua uses often the gnashing of teeth. Well, they're not the teeth he's talking about here, not gnashing teeth, not that angry baring of teeth. These are beautiful teeth, which are used for chewing the word, and as Matthew Henry says, breaking it down for the feeding of others. That's lovely, isn't it? Anyone, you're welcome to interject here. It's just a small house group fellowship. Any people that we don't know that watch us, you're more than welcome. And really pleased to have you. But this is
really, it just really emphasises that chewing on good doctrine, so that you're not deceived. When you think about that, it really does matter what you're chewing on. You're not going to be deceived if you're chewing on the right things.
Yes.
So just that really.
That's good teeth, isn't it? Yeah, okay, let's just move on then. So that's a good message on the teeth, or some things to ponder. Skip over these things when you go, oh, your teeth. But, this is all about learning this. And I've loved this song, as you know, for 10 years or more, but I've never had this much intensive time in it with other people. I haven't. And so even over all the years of studying together, never took this amount of time to do it. Tried to ram it all into 1-2 hour sessions. Like, how hopeless is that when you can see how long we can spend on this to fully understand these things? All this is to say, let them have dove's eyes. Let me have dove's eyes. And what about let them have goat's hair? And now these teeth, let them have teeth. Let us have teeth like this. That's what you're meant to be doing here. You're meant to be going away. We spend millions of pounds advertising Oral-B, and everyone goes out and buys it for whatever, to have the teeth whitened and all the rest of it. People spend a fortune. Someone was telling me the other week, people are flying over to Turkey and spending grands to get new sets of gnashes. Well, they probably will be gnashing the teeth if that's what they're all interested in. These are the teeth of the bride. This is what, if you're willing to spend all your money on teeth whitening, spend all your life, spend all your time on getting your teeth truly whitened like this. It's all about doctrine. It's all about chewing on the word. That will make your teeth to be these bridal teeth. That's fair, isn't it? Yeah. Amen. Let's stay in that area, because now he mentions the lips. In this area of the mouth, it now goes from the teeth to the lips. And he will have more to say about the lips later in this chapter. Your lips are like a strand of scarlet. And I know you all think I'm going to start going on about the crimson worm. Well, I'm not, because it's not that weird. So I know I can see it all. You're thinking, oh, here we go, the crimson worm. You love the crimson worms, don't you? Psalm 22, we get loads of chances to talk about the crimson worm, but this is not the crimson worm, because it's not got that word for worm in there, tola'ah, which is the crimson worm. This says your lips are like a strand of scarlet. So what else does this remind anyone of? And it says mouth in the King James. I think in my New King James it should say your mouth is lovely. And in the King James it says your speech is lovely. And in the Hebrew it says your midbar is lovely. And I mentioned that last time. I think it was with you, Jackie, mentioning the wilderness. And I said, yeah, we look at the wilderness again, and the word for wilderness is somewhat a word, midbar. And I said, you can see how the wilderness is connected with the word. Dabar's in there, in the name for wilderness. Midbar, you've got Dabar word. And so you always look at the wilderness in that way. Look at it in a positive light sometimes, as a place, as an opportunity where God takes people to hear his word. God led Israel into the wilderness. God knew what he was doing. God had a purpose in it. So the wilderness can be productive spiritually, even though it's a barren place. It's a place for miracles to occur. So even that is the language of Solomon. Again, like I said last time, he uses amazing language. And he's saying your lips are a strand of scarlet, and your speech, your midbar, is lovely. But you can't disconnect it from wilderness. That's probably why Matthew Henry uses a lot of the Israel understanding in this, which I wholeheartedly go along with. Israel, grafted into this nation, spiritually speaking. But let me just say more about that. And it just said, what's that remind you of? What's it remind you of to have lips like a strand of scarlet? Well, again, that's the crimson, and it is the same word, and it's the crimson worm language. But just to be more specific, it's the language of, and you'll know exactly what I mean when I say, and when I say turn to Joshua chapter 2, then you'll know. You're on it. You're on it. And that's right, and that's what he's saying. You've got lips like Rahab. Your lips are like Rahab. Look, Rahab's, what's the word you use for, she's a hero in the faith. She's a hero in the faith, and that's not me saying it. That's Hebrews chapter 11, the whole of faith saying it. The chapter of faith mentions Rahab in there. In fact, let's just start with that. Hebrews, just to set it up right, to understand what scarlet threaded lips look like. It's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 31. By faith. It's faith lips. By faith, the harlot Rahab did not perish with those who did not believe when she had received the spies with peace. So now let's read it. I think some narratives are just worth reading, and this one's one of them. Joshua chapter 2. Your lips are like a strand of scarlet. Where's that going to take you to? Joshua chapter 2. Verse 8. Now, before they lay down the spies that just got mentioned in Hebrews 11 that she received with peace, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that Jehovah has given you the land, that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that the inhabitants of the land are faint-hearted because of you. What's that remind you of then? Exodus 15, isn't it? It says in Exodus 15, oh, the inhabitants of the land will faint. Moab and they're all going to be faint-hearted. And this was Exodus 15 as they were just crossed the Red Sea. Just as they had come out of Egypt and crossed the Red Sea, they were all singing this song, the inhabitants of the land will faint away and melt away. And Rahab's testifying to it 40 years later going, we've heard of everything that God's done. And I'm letting you know, everyone's hearts fell apart. This is what scarlet lips will do. The report of the Lord. And they're all faint-hearted. We have heard, verse 10, how Jehovah dried up the water at the Red Sea. It's connected with the coming through the Red Sea. It's Exodus 15. For you, when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were on the other side of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts melted. Neither there remain any more courage in anyone because of you. For Jehovah your Elohim, he is Elohim, God in heaven above and on earth beneath. Now therefore, I beg you, swear to me by Jehovah, since I have shown you kindness, that you also will show kindness to my father's house and give me a true token. She's doing this, what, by faith. And spare my father. Oh, how many times do we pray the Rahab prayer here when we pray for our families? She's concerned. She's concerned that her family are going to be destroyed. This is a picture of the end time judgments, the judgments on Jericho. And she's concerned about her family. And she intercedes for her family by faith. This is what scarlet lips are about. Spare my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. So the men answered her, our lives for yours, if none of you tell us this business of ours. And it shall be, when Jehovah has given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with you. Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the city wall. She dwelt on the wall, and she said to them, get to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you. Hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Afterwards you may go your way. Then so the men said to her, we will be blameless of this oath of yours, which you have made us swear, unless when we come into the land, you bind this line of scarlet cord. That's what this is about. Your lips. Oh, they take me back to Rahab. They take me back to that once time harlot who is in the messy Anna blind, isn't she? You know, just read Matthew and you'll see Rahab is in the maternal line of the Lord and Saviour of the world, Yeshua. And that's the beloved. Oh, you remind me of my great, etc. grandmother Rahab and her faith, how she knew who the real God was.
She identifies
She identifies
with Israel.
with
And that's what the
Israel.
bride at the end time
Brilliant.
will look like. She said, my God will,
That's
your
Ruth.
God will.
That's Ruth.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but
either
Ruth
way,
is another maternal
she
character.
identified that it was
Yes.
God of Israel.
That's right.
And the end time church will identify
That's
Israel.
right. Jericho is fallen. Babylon is fallen. Get me out of it. I can see it's doomed. It's time to come out of Babylon, my people. It was time for Rahab to identify with Israel and with the God of Israel and plead for mercy. And Hebrews tells us she was full of faith. So if you're looking at scarlet lips, you're looking at Rahab. Let's just finish what it says.
Steve, there's other. Sorry, I've had the camera off because I'm eating for dinner. There's a scarlet cord running right through Scripture.
Yes.
If you think of the cord that they attached to, was it Perez or Zerah? Right back in Genesis.
Zerah.
Yeah. And so and then of course you think of the blood running down the cross. Scarlet cord right through the Bible.
Yes, there is, Nick.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, it is wonderful. And that's got to be, that's what the lips are being commended for this.
Yeah.
What you've just said and brought to it, that scarlet cord that runs right through the Bible. Develop that. If you don't know what Nick's talking about, ask him to develop it more and understand the language that Nick's just brought there, the scarlet cord that runs right through the redemptive narrative of the Bible, going right through to Yeshua's blood. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And that's what they're saying to Rahab. You know, it's only going to be by the gospel. It's only going to be by your acknowledgement by faith. You know, faith without works is dead. If Rahab would have just gone, oh, get it, yes, sound, but not done it, guess what? Guess what? There would be no Rahab. You know, God had used someone else, but there would have been no Rahab and no Rahab household if she hadn't acted with the faith. She believed, but she actually put faith. It works to her faith. Faith without works is dead. Rahab, by faith, believed it and did it and actually got the scarlet cord.
Yeah.
So
when the twins were being born as well in Genesis, they tied one of them, the foot came out first, and then they tied the cord around that as well, didn't they?
Yeah, Nick mentioned that Genesis 38 in this narrative of the birth of Perez, but it was the other one who put his hand out first, or his but then Perez burst forth, and the midwife's like, "Oh, how did you break forth?" Because it was he became the second born, which is probably a message in that, isn't it? That the one with the scarlet cord was the second born, a bit like Yeshua is the second Adam, if you will see it that way. But okay. Well, look, I think you can read the rest of that yourself. I think we got the message out of the Rahab narrative, haven't we? You don't need to read it all through. You can just see she does it, and she's saved, and her household saved. Praise God for the scarlet cord. That's all I can say. The scarlet cord is the gospel message, and people who receive it and act on it by faith will be saved. So that's wonderful, I would say. The scarlet cord message. Your lips are as a scarlet cord. And then you can see how it connects with your speech, your midbar. It's lovely. You know, why is it lovely? Because of what Nick's just said. There's a scarlet cord running right through the Bible. And if that's what you talk about to one another, to yourself, and maybe most importantly, to other people who need to hear this, who need to hear, there is a scarlet cord. There is a way of escape. There's only one. There's no other way, Rahab. You know, she'd have tied the blue cords up, she would have got nowhere. You know, that's not a slang. That's just the way it is. There's only one colour, scarlet, that would have saved in that scenario. There's only one way to be saved. And that does bring you to the crimson worm, Psalm 22, which we're not going to get into. And your speech, your mouth is lovely. You know, I could just throw it, it's probably a horrible way of putting it, throw. I could just place gently at this point a New Testament scripture, which you all know from Colossians, but it just backs this up with the instructions from Paul in Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. Let your speech always be with grace. You know, easier said than done, but Paul wouldn't say it if it wasn't possible. And have you like Rahab? Have we got faith? Well, come on, let's believe that these things can be achieved. Let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt. You know, you are the salt of the earth, Yeshua said, and if the salt loses its saltiness, it's good for nothing. It's good for nothing. So let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know to answer each one. Amen. Just need to say one more thing on this language of the lips. Hebrews. It's probably taken longer than we thought this. That's okay, is it? Yeah. It's only a small little bit. Hebrews 13. So thanks for joining us, by the way, you know, tonight. Obviously, lovely to see you. Really appreciate you being with us. And we'll be doing this for the next few weeks, midweek, you know, probably Tuesday night. But I'll let you know when it changes on that. But I am going to get through the Song of Songs with, after tonight, chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8 to go. So a few more weeks to occupy us and keep us in this narrative, which I'm grateful of. But just one more word on lips, please. Hebrews 13, famous scripture for us. Hebrews 13. Well, we'll just do it from verse 13. Therefore, let us go forth to him outside the camp, bearing his reproach. You know what reminds me of that? I'm going to get out of bed. I'm going to the city, to the streets and the squares. I'm going to the marketplaces. In Hebrew it was the souk, the marketplace. So, you know, however you can apply that in your spheres of influence, in your marketplaces of your life. Be like the wise virgin. Get out of bed. Go to the city. Go to the marketplaces. Seek the one you love. And the one he loves, that's where the eyes see. That's why wisdom stands in these places. That's why wisdom lifts her voice and cries aloud in these busy places, in these concourses, crying out to fools to become wise. Repent. Come to the kingdom. You know, I've done it all. I've prepared everything. Just come. That's what wisdom sounds like, isn't it? So that's what that reminds me of. Let's go out forth outside the camp, bearing his reproach. For here we have no continuing city. We don't. I love Liverpool, but it's not, you know, it's just temporary, isn't it? Even more so in these days that we're in now. So I've never heard the nuclear rhetoric as much as I am doing. Here we have no continuing city, but we seek the one to come. That's what Dove's eyes will be. Dove's eyes are like that. I've only got eyes for you. I've only got eyes for one city. And it's not Liverpool or New York or London or anywhere else. It's Zion. We seek the one to come. Therefore, by him, let us continually offer the sacrifice, because we're a priesthood, aren't we? And we offer sacrifices, and we are to be living sacrifices. So, both priest and sacrifice we are. Let us offer sacrifices of praise to God. That is, and here it is, you see, the fruit of our lips. That's what he's commending the wise, beautiful brides, isn't it now saying? Your lips, your lips. Well, the lips are, God's given us these lips for this reason. The fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. That's what our lips are given for, you know. Our lips are to praise him. Our lips are to give thanks to his name. That's what the spiritual priesthood we're part of now is. We don't bring innocent surrogate animals anymore. We bring ourselves as living sacrifices. And we offer our bodies And part of our bodies is our lips, and our lips are to give thanks to his name. That's what we're here to do. Moving on. Your temples behind your veil, that language again of the veil, are like pieces of pomegranate. And I know you all know this language now, because when we do the Torah every year, we look at pomegranates in Exodus, don't we? In Exodus, we see pomegranates, and we see it in other places, Numbers and Deuteronomy, because it's one of the fruits of the land, one of the species of the land, along with the grapes, you know, and the figs and other species of fruit that God connects with the land of Israel, is the pomegranate. It's a land, it's a fruitful land, and one of its fruits, one of the fruits of the land, is the pomegranate. So it's right that the pomegranate should be brought into this narrative. And as we always say, the pomegranate is famous for what? Its seeds. It's full of seeds. And so whenever we mention seeds, we know Yeshua defines it all for us, didn't he, in the parable of the sower? And he said the seed is the word of God. So there's just no need to go any further with that. The seed is the word of God. So the pomegranate is a picture of a fruitful species of fruit, a fruit full of seed, full of seeds, full of
don't the rabbis teach that there are 613 seeds in a pomegranate?
They do actually. They say there's 613 seeds in a pomegranate, equating that with the 613 laws in the Torah. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if anyone's ever counted. If you want to get a pomegranate and do it, let us know. But, you know, for our purposes, what we want to do is just understand what the pomegranate is speaking of here. It's speaking of seeds. But where do we really see it, the pomegranate, elsewhere? Well, two places I would mention where you see the pomegranate, both in connection with the priesthood or the temple. Lastly, you see it in Solomon's temple. You know, this is the Song of Solomon. Solomon loved pomegranates. You know, this is his song, isn't it? And you can see how connected he is with pomegranates by the temple he built. Because on the two pillars of the temple, around the crowns at the top, there were 200 pomegranates on each one. 400, 400. Without going too deeply into it, we mentioned this in Genesis, don't we? That 400 and the connection with the whole world and things like this. But 400 anyway, not going to go into that anymore, apart from to say they are as lofty as that, they are as high as that, they are at the top of the pillars of Solomon's temple, pomegranates. So that must have something to do with this when he's saying your temples. You know, I don't think it's a play on words, only in English it's a play on words, but your temples, he's talking about this area, isn't he? The mind. You know, that's what you do this, you look like you're thinking hard, don't you? You're meditating, that's what you're doing, thinking, your thoughts, your meditations are like pomegranates, very seedy, in a good way, very full of seed, full of the seed of God's word, is what this is saying. But as well as being at the very high place, at the top of the pillars, where else? The more famously, pomegranates are as low down as the hem of the high priest's garment. Beautiful. Remember that robe that must be made for the high priest in Exodus 28. I'm not going to go there, but if you want to just go there yourself, if you're not familiar with it, just go back to Exodus 28, around verse 33. And every time we read that, we connect this narrative, because it says there that on the hem of the high priest's garment, there has to be a pomegranate, very special pomegranate, and a golden bell, and a pomegranate, and a bell, all the way around, pomegranate, bell. Very special pomegranate, because do you remember what it's made of? or what its colours were. It's those redemptive colours of the temple again. You know, the way the curtains were made of blue and purple and scarlet. And go to that, don't we, and see the blue as the divinity, and the red as humanity, and the purple as the oneness of that. A real picture of redemption about God the Father sent his Son, put on flesh, and other things that we get into when we go through the redemptive colours of the curtains of blue, purple and scarlet. Well, the pomegranate also is made of blue, purple and scarlet. So this pomegranate is all of that. It's a redemptive fruit, and it's right next to a golden bell. And it says in the Exodus instructions that this is so you can hear the sound. So you can what? Hear the sound of the high priest as he walks. And then so we always go back to Genesis, don't we? Chapter 3, when Adam heard the sound of the Lord walking in the garden and hid himself. And so this high priest is to, no, when you hear the sound, don't hide yourself. I'm here to redeem. I'm here to bring you back. I'm here to make a way so that you too can come through the tent of the meeting and come to the Holy of Holies. It's not just one man now. One man's done it once for all, Yeshua the Messiah, so that we can all come into fellowship again. You know, not like Adam, who heard the sound of him and hid himself. But now hear the sound of him, because that's what the bells are for, the golden bells. And so when you put it all together, I like to look at it this way, and we'll see it. I will go back to this, I think, when we get into chapter 6, and you see the word there for bells that we're looking at is also connected with what we'll see in the Song of Songs, feet or footsteps. It's like it's the same word for bell and footstep. So when I put all that in my meditating faculty, I just come out with this. It's meditating on the seeds, thinking on the sounds, and it's the seeds of the sound of the high priest's footsteps. The Jewish people talk about these end of the age that we're in now as the time of the footsteps of the Messiah. And they go, passionately, can you hear his footsteps? We're in the footsteps of the Messiah. And that's what I believe with all my heart, that we are in the footsteps of the Messiah. And so my temples, my and your temples are given for this, for the meditating on his footsteps, his feet, listening out for him. That's what wise virgins are like, listening out for the bridegroom. He's coming. Can you hear him? That's what I get out of pomegranate temples. I'm sure, as we've said, things there might be other things, might be, well, what about that? And okay, that's what it's for. That's what it's for, just to narrate, sing this song, and allow the Spirit to make the connections. But above all, make us pray for this, for ourselves, and pray this for one another. Have you ever asked this? Have you ever said, Lord, please give me pomegranate temples? I mean, have you? I'm not asking for it, you know, I'm just saying, but why wouldn't you now? Pray, Lord, if you love your bride to have temples like pomegranates, I want temples like pomegranates. Will you please do that? Will you please work in me by your grace, by your Holy Spirit, who you've given to prepare us, and help us to get ready? Would you give us temples like pieces of pomegranates, Lord? Will you give us minds that can digest and meditate on your footsteps, on your priestly footsteps? Will you help us to hear you, Lord, more in these last days? Amen. That's what I get out of pomegranates and temples. Next element he's going to talk about is the neck. I feel like I've got to really put my foot down here. I might take ages.
too long.
I know, I don't want to go on too long, as Lynn's saying, but see how long I've got to go. It's
Well,
like,
it's all right. We just got to carry on for a few minutes.
yeah, okay, we might have to draw a line at some point then. I was hoping to do all of chapter 4. Your neck, the next issue, at least we'll get through these issues. Your neck is like the Tower of David. Again, you can't really see this in a physical way, can you? You know, it looked ridiculous. Someone with a big giraffe neck. You know what I mean? It's nothing carnal or outwardly about this. It's inward stuff, isn't it? It's the hidden beauty, the beauty of the hidden man, the inner man. And so this is all spiritual language. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built for an armory. So you can get the language here. It's all about warfare and valor, on which hang 1,000 bucklers, all shields of mighty men. So the neck, in the physiological sense, I think Matthew Henry brings this out, is what connects the body with the head. And that's a great, simple way of looking at it. Yeshua is the head, and we're the body, isn't it? And the neck is the connection. And I like that. Just like that simple way of looking at it. But I like to look at it this way. The neck is the place for the yoke, isn't it? It's where you would put a yoke upon a beast of burden, on an ox. You'd put a yoke across the team's neck. So the neck is about whose yoke are you under? Who are you yoked to? Yoke is a lot to do with teaching, because that's what Yeshua said, didn't he? You're weak and heavy laden. Come to me, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Learn from me. You know, I'm going to teach you how to be unburdened and not weak and heavy laden. I'll give you rest. Take my yoke and learn from me. So that's what I look at when I see the neck. It's a neck that's got the right yoke on. Because you see many scriptures when the Lord speaks of the yoke of the nations and the yoke of bondage and the yoke that's so negative. And I will smash that yoke, God says. I'll take that yoke of oppression off your neck and put on my yoke. Be yoked with me. That's what we want, isn't it? So I see that in the neck. I also see how it refers to our character, because God uses the language, doesn't he, of rebuke to Moses and to the Israelites, and he says, you're stiff-necked, you're rebellious and stiff-necked. So this neck is not that. It's not a stiff-necked. It's a neck of submission. And now he's saying it's like the Tower of David, the Migdal of David, built for an armory, on which hang 1,000, which is probably the word you're more familiar with, which we normally translate as shield, bucklers, but it is the word magen, you know, the word that we normally think is shield, magen. And that comes from the verb root magan, which means to defend. There's a lot of this word, this language in the Bible, especially in the Psalms. The Lord is a shield to me. You know, he is my defender. And that's what this is all about. It's that weapons of warfare, which has got, you know, defensive weapons, as you'll be able to understand clearly from Ephesians chapter 6, won't it? Ephesians chapter 6, the shield of faith. What's it for? It's not to hit people over the head with. It's to quench the fiery darts of the evil one. It's defensive thing, isn't it? But then the next one, that's the bucklers, and it says all shields of mighty men. And shields is a different word, shelet, and that comes from the verb root shalat, which means to rule and take dominion. So you can see both sides of this, can't you? It's like it's an armory. It's a warfare phrase of both defense and dominion and rulership. That's what King David's kingdom's like, wasn't it? You know, so shields of faith is what you're looking at. Ephesians chapter 6, and you can see in other parts in Chronicles and Kings when it explains all of these things, how the shields were hung on the walls of this tower. and they were testimonies of great conquests, and why we love Hebrews 11 when it tells us to consider these people, consider these men and women of valor, consider these people of faith. And that's what this Tower of David is. It's like a wonderful place to look at the conquests of God, how he's used weak people like us. He's turned Gideons, hasn't he, into mighty men of valor. Weak and lowly people, God's able to do mighty things through. And that's what he's saying about earlier. Your neck, your character, you're connected to the head, full of faith and exploits. And now, finally, in this list is the breasts. And there's a lot more in the Song of Songs about breasts. And so we'll talk more about breasts. He has more to say. And she, in chapter 8, has more to say about her own breasts. So there's lots more to say about the breasts and all of this. But first thing I probably would say about this is the context of what he's saying. Your two breasts are like young twins of a gazelle which feed among the lilies. What's that remind you of? We told me done it last time. The what? Yeah, so whenever we see that lilies, we just got to remember Yeshua's words and how important Yeshua made the lily as a helper to us, because he said, consider the lilies, in the context of don't worry about your life, don't worry about what you're going to wear, don't worry about what you're going to eat and drink, don't worry. And as an aid to help you not worry, consider the lilies. And so you can see she's got this character, hasn't she? She feeds amongst the lilies, and she brings up her young to feed amongst the lilies. She teaches her young, don't worry about this life. It teaches her the language and the ways of the kingdom. Don't worry, don't be anxious, trust the Lord, consider the lilies. Solomon, in all his finery, didn't come anywhere near the lilies of how God looks after them. So be a lily, be a lily. The two breasts are like these twins, young twins of a gazelle. You know, gazelles features in this a lot, both male and female, haven't we? You've seen gazelle or roe, hind, the Messiah, the beloved himself, like into this majestic animal and this glorious and beautiful creature, because that is what the word suggests. The Hebrew word for the gazelle, for the roe, comes from the very word to be majestic and glorious and beautiful. So that's this very stately animal, isn't it? This glorious, free-roaming beast that God's created. Wonderful. And so he's likening her to the female version of himself in that respect. But whenever we talk about breasts, we all always think of their functionality, and they are milk producers, aren't they, or providers. So it is what Isaiah 28 saying. And then I'm going to probably start to wrap up after this. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So, half 8, yeah. Yeah, don't want to go much later than this, although we've still got lots to get through. Okay, don't worry. But Isaiah 28, verse 9. And then obviously that'll take us to 1 Peter. Just to understand what breasts are about when they're talking in the Bible. Chapter 28, verse 9. Whom will he teach knowledge, and who will he make to understand the message? Those just weaned from milk, those just drawn from the breasts. So you can understand the connection there, can't you? With the breasts, that's to do with teaching, and that's exactly what 1 Peter is saying. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 2. As newborn babes desire the pure milk of the word, that you may grow thereby, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is gracious. So she is obviously commended, this wise virgin, this bride who has made herself ready, who will soon depart to be with the bridegroom. she is obviously one who can provide the sincere milk of the word. She can feed the babes and instruct them in the way of righteousness and get them off to the finest possible start you could have, being trained and taught the sincere milk of the word. Beautiful. What a gift that is, and I pray for that gift in our group. But finally, on finishing off on breasts, let's just, again, within the context of the Bible, what do they remind you of? It reminds me of, we've already mentioned it tonight, in Ephesians, let's go there. It reminds me of the breastplate. The breastplate takes us to that area, and so we can see how the Bible focuses on that area in terms of the armour of God. You know, as we go through this, maybe more next time, it'll start to open up more in the warfare language, but we've already mentioned it with the armoury of David and the bucklers, the defence and the shields. We've mentioned that language already, haven't we? Already gone to Ephesians 6 in our thinking. So let's go there now, just to understand this. Ephesians chapter 6. We've mentioned the shield of faith just now, didn't we? But before that, it says in verse 14, stand therefore, stand, having girded your waist with truth. Let me just say this. I liked what Chris, you said at the start when we just got talking before we started this. And Chris taking us back to Saturday, to the Sabbath, he said, when we spoke about arise and shine, and he mentioned how he understood the context of that from his military days. And wow, I didn't know that. It's a military expression that the sergeant will come in and say to the troops, arise and shine. And the shine was because you're going out to represent your country. You're going out to represent king and country. So arise and shine. And I thought, I'd never heard that before, but taking it from an ex-military man, it's like sound. This is the command from the sergeant major to get out of bed and get about your duties. Arise and shine. And this is this language, stand therefore. And Chris likens it to going out and sharing the good news. Is us getting out of bed and shining, like we've said. But a lovely practical connection there, Chris. And I like the military side of it, because this is military language in Ephesians. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness. So that's what where language about breast does to me. It makes me go, breastplate. And what's the breastplate about? Righteousness. You know, in the priestly garments, the high priest had a breastplate, didn't he? And that was called the breastplate of judgment. And he had 12 stones on it, etc., representing Israel. And he was to intercede. So that's what this reminds me of, this breastplate of righteousness. The one who wears this armour, one who understands the gospel of righteousness, one who can communicate the gospel of righteousness. So that's what...
You can't put the breastplate of righteousness on though, Steve, unless you've got the belt of truth on first, because otherwise the breastplate would fall down, wouldn't it?
Yes, amen.
You've got to be standing on the word of truth first.
It's all in there, you should have the whole full armour, put on the full armour of God. That's what he says in it, what you're saying, the whole armour. I've mentioned already the shield of faith, which is in that passage. So yeah, if you're not familiar with that, you need to know the full armour of God. One other thing about this area of the body, the breastplate, is another New Testament passage which Paul uses to describe the breastplate. It's the breastplate of righteousness in Ephesians, but in Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 8. Great chapter this, which I'm sure we will come to at some point more in this study. But 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 is real word to the wise, isn't it? really a word to the wise about times and seasons and the coming of the Lord and it being like a thief in the night. So I think we'll get a chance to look at this when we get to the Song of Songs, chapter 5, but the thief in the night. But in this chapter, he's saying, verse 7, you know, again in this language of waking up, wake up, rise and shine, get out of bed. Verse 8, but let us who are of the day be sober, putting on, here it is, the breastplate of faith and love. Faith and love. And so you see there how he's mentioned this, the two breasts are like the young fawns of a gazelle of a roe, twins of a gazelle. Twins, the two breasts, there's got to be a bit of balance here, you see. And that's the way Paul uses this language when he's describing the breastplate of faith and love. You know, and he carries on with that language and a helmet, the hope of salvation. For God did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain salvation through our Lord Yeshua the Messiah, who died for us, that whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. Therefore, comfort one another and edify one another, just as you are also doing. You know, that's the language that he is commending his bride for. Her breasts are feeding the young, nourishing the young, and she is obviously a person who understands righteousness and someone who excels in faith and love. So that's what that area of the anatomy is about biblically. Biblically. Is that okay? So I think we'll have to leave it there, will we? Yeah, you sound sincere about that. Okay, well, we're going to leave it there then. No, people didn't work the next day, etc. And I don't intend to go on as long as I do. And I don't feel like I go much off the beaten track. It's just there's so much in these things, isn't it? So that's fine. So as Lynn's saying, we'll leave it there. But I really appreciate you joining us. And so we're back up and running now with some sort of midweek Bible study, which I know some people wanted anyway. So this is going to necessitate it for the next few weeks as we go forward. So Lord, you know, we covered the 7 areas there tonight that you commend this bride, this one who has made herself ready. As we'll see next time, it's indisputable that she has made herself ready, because you say that, and you say, come with me. She goes with you. So this is what I would see as the checklist, really, that we all need to look in the mirror and check out our eyes, check out our hair, check out our teeth and our lips, check out our temples and our neck and our breasts and see, do we look like that? Lord, you're not here to condemn anyone. You're here to build up and edify and prepare everyone. You're not willing for any to perish. You're not willing for any to miss out on this. It's your will for us all to be this way, spotless and without blemish. Thank you that you haven't left us alone. Could not do it with all the will in the world in our own strength. But with the help of the Holy Spirit, this is all possible. So I speak these words tonight by faith, Lord, over each one listening to this, over myself, and we will be transformed by the renewing of our minds, by agreeing with your way of looking at this, by confessing the right things, that we are fair. That if anyone's in the Messiah, the old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Look in the mirror of the Word and see how he sees us. And that is faith. So thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you, Lord Yeshua, for being the bridegroom, for wanting us to be ready and helping us to be ready. Thank you for everyone in this little group, Lord, looking out for each other and praying biblically for one another. In Yeshua's name, amen. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next time. Amen.